Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Straightforward topic, let's do it. What incident makes you sick to your stomach? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I woke up from an evening nap to the sounds of screaming. At first, I thought it was my roommates playing a video game, but soon realized it was coming from my open window. It was just one person screaming over and over again. Turns out our next door neighbor killed herself. It was her cousin screaming after finding her body. Those gut-wrenching screams still ring in my ears when I think about that night. A lady who was having dinner at a local restaurant couldn't get rid of her hiccups, so the restaurant owner brought a spoonful of vinegar as a remedy, but he accidentally gave her oven cleaner. Her esophagus was completely burned, and she can now only eat via a stomach bag. Whoa. A young woman in my neighborhood was brutally murdered by her boyfriend. It was true crime level bad. He strangled her and stabbed her repeatedly, dragging her all around the house, and then violated her while she was dying. Her brothers found her body. The murderer's best alibi was that he was dealing cocaine at the time. Sylvia Marie Likens, January 3, 1949, October 26, 1965, was an American teenager who was tortured and murdered by her caregiver, Gertrude Baniszewski. Many of Baniszewski's children and several of their neighborhood friends. This abuse incrementally lasted for 3 months before Likens died from her extensive injuries and malnourishment on October 26, 1965, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Likens was increasingly neglected, belittled, sexually humiliated, beaten, starved, lacerated, burned, and dehydrated by her tormentors. Her autopsy showed 150 wounds across her body, including several burns, scald marks, and eroded skin. Through intimidation, her younger sister Jenny was occasionally forced to participate in her mistreatment. The official cause of her death was determined to be a homicide caused by a combination of subdural hematoma and shock, complicated by severe malnutrition. Yes, I've read about this one in posts past, and it is truly horrible. Just terrible. One of my very close friends was a recovering addict, fent heroin meth, and the night she relapsed, due in part to her unbearable tooth pain, she was with some effed up people who thought she overdosed and died. Fearing they would be to blame for her death, they locked the door on the way out of the RV and set it on fire. By the time anyone realized it was on fire, it was too late. The coroner said she, in fact, was burned alive due to the smoke that was in her lungs. The Fritzl case, where Josef Fritzl held his daughter Elizabeth, who had just turned 18 at the time, captive in a basement prison for 24 years so he could SA her after telling her mother she ran away. She gave birth to 7 kids alone down there, one of which died while 3 stayed imprisoned with her in the basement, and 3 he took upstairs to claim his missing daughter had left the babies on his doorstep so his wife could raise him. Easily the most effed up and horrifying case I'd ever seen, and I watch and listen to a lot of true crime. I'm also horrified that his life imprisonment term includes that he can be paroled after 15 years, which means he could be eligible for parole this year. Cambodian massacre. There are a lot of pictures with thousands of skulls, and at the time of Khmer Rouge, their life expectancy was below 20 years. Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. One of their victims was locked out of her house as punishment because she missed curfew. They picked her up on her own doorstep. I was around 13 years old, was swimming in the pool with my buddy and heard my neighbor scream. We got out and went to him. He was using an electric skill saw. We did not know that he was being electrocuted. My friend reached down and touched him and started being electrocuted also. I ran to the plug and unplugged the saw. By the time his wife walked out and was screaming, I went a few houses down and got our nurse neighbor. She and I gave them CPR. The entire time the wife is screaming. We were doing chest compressions and breathing for them. I watched as my neighbor foamed at the mouth, turned purple, and died in front of me. My friend survived. At 13 years old, I dealt with trauma for a long time. I didn't go to the funeral, as I was so disturbed. Grown people made fun of me and criticized me for not going. People thought I was just some hateful, cold-hearted kid. My mother understood what I was dealing with. At 13, I watched my neighbor's wife hold their 2-year-old and scream while I tried to save her husband. I still see this vividly. To this day, I remember everything about this. I still reach out to his family and let them know I haven't forgotten him. They need to know this. People need to know that their loved ones are remembered. The same people who criticized me for not going to the funeral have long forgotten him. When I was in college, a student went missing. Her remains were found not too long after. She had an argument with her boyfriend and broke up with him. He got angry at her, murdered her, and tried to get rid of the evidence by chopping her up and burning her on his barbecue grill. I was up late at night with my infant baby and heard moans coming from the apartment next door. I thought it was someone getting busy and ignored it. The next night I heard it louder, and then a few hours later heard it again and could make out someone saying help. It was like 4 a.m. and everyone in my house was asleep, so I texted 911. Eventually, FDNY and EMS came and broke into the apartment and found an old lady who had fallen in the shower and couldn't get up. She was there for 3 days, it turned out, and was surviving by drinking water from the tub. She lived and was moved to an assisted living home, but I can still hear those screams and feel so bad that I ignored it that first night. We're our own worst critics, and you could armchair quarterback your decisions all day long. But the truth is, maybe it was an extra day, but you did reach out, and because of your actions, you kept that woman alive in some way. So good for you. There's no other thing except that, so thank you for doing a good deed. I'm Syrian, so let me mention a few that I was near. Google Al-Tadamon Massacre. This was done by the Syrian Military Intelligence Services. People were blindfolded and told they were taken to safety just to be shot by those who guided them and buried in groups. Another is Adra Massacre. This was done by the opposing Islamic forces, where they invaded a city and burned people alive in the city's bakery. I heard of someone who committed suicide, killing his wife and little girl to not be tortured when they entered his home using a hand grenade. He was an officer in the army, killing a few of the terrorists, too. Those who did both massacres are still alive and involved in the war on both sides. Damien Bendel. Evil killer Damien Bendel will spend the rest of his life in prison after murdering his pregnant partner and 3 children in a horrific and brutal attack. Bendel, 32, who had previously admitted manslaughter, pled guilty to murdering 35-year-old Terry Harris, her 11-year-old daughter Lacey Bennett, her son John Bennett, 13, and Lacey's friend Connie Gent, 11, with a claw hammer at the home he shared with Ms. Harris. He also admitted R-ing Lacey as she lay dying from the head wounds he had inflicted with the hammer at the house in Killamarsh, near Sheffield, in 2021. Murder of James Bulger. Everything about the incident itself and the entire aftermath, media behavior, etc. In a nearby village to ours, a brother beat his little sister to death, thinking she had sex with someone, as the brother saw a red stain on her skirt, which was, in fact, her first period blood. This shows how much sex ed is required for everyone. The Hi-Fi murders. The wiki page goes into way too much detail. The part that sticks with me and makes me sick to my stomach is, afterwards, he allowed her to use the bathroom while he watched, then dragged her, still naked, back to the other hostages, threw her on her face, and fatally shot her in the back of the head. According to Oren's testimony, her last words were, "I'm too young to die." So horrible. Oren outplayed the shit out of the robbers, but had to witness 4 times murders, including his son, as well as the R of an 18-year-old girl. He survived, but probably was never the same again. by a long shot. I got a call while leaving work that I needed to get home ASAP due to an emergency that was occurring at my house. My fiance had drowned in the pool while swimming with her kids. The police and EMTs put the kids in my house and tried to revive her. They didn't know that the entire backside of my house had windows facing the pool, so the kids basically were alone and watched them trying to save her life. When I walked in the house, I saw them crying and staring at their dead mother's body, and all they really kept saying was, "If they push on her chest harder, will we get the good ending?" I put them in a different room and went to the bathroom and threw up. Then I went back to them and just held them and tried to slowly communicate that no, we were not going to be getting a good ending. Broke my heart in so many ways. It wasn't nearly as bad as most of the comments here. I was responding to a nursing home, I was paramedic, because of a ripped out urinary catheter on an old man living there. We came to this place and the nurse was extremely disinterested and only showed me where his room was. As I came into his room, he was alone and lying naked in his blood, I think like 350 to 500 milliliter blood loss, on his mattress, on the floor. My colleague rushed to the nurse and got her to the room to ask what the actual F is going on here. She responded only like, "I didn't want the blood to drip on the bed, so she doesn't need to clean it, and he was naked because it's not necessary. He had dementia and can't remember it anyway." I was honestly shocked and noted her name in the protocol. We quickly got the man on the stretcher, packed him with 2 to 3 blankets, got him in our ambulance and made our examinations or diagnostics, my English is not too good, and then rushed to the next hospital. Luckily, we got a very nice, motivated, and young doctor in the hospital. We explained the whole situation, and she was extremely pissed off, not because of us obviously, and shocked. So she called the police and the family of the man. He was treated in hospital and got quickly better. As I heard the doctor a couple of weeks later, he got into another nursing home afterwards. This whole case got to court because this nurse hurt his right to dignity. I didn't know how this thing ended. I didn't see her again in the nursing home, but after this incident, I literally went to the toilets and threw up. Blood wounds, broken bones, ripped off legs, everything, no problem for me. But people who built up our country after world wars and worked off their asses for our pretty nice living, treated like shit? Nope. There's my psychological border, because it was disgusting for me. All of Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes, but specifically Konorak Synthosophone. Just thinking about how that poor baby got away and the police just returned him to Dahmer and laughed about it, and afterwards make me so upset and my stomach turn. He could have gone home, but the police served him to Dahmer on a silver platter. A lot of incidents in Egypt that happened under the military regime, but the ones that stand out to me are 1. The torture and murder of Khaled Said, who exposed some dirty cops for selling drugs that were confiscated from drug dealers. The government protected the dirty cops and denied any torture of Said. His death sparked the 2011 revolution in Egypt. When protests started, they weren't even against Mubarak, they were against police brutality. 2. A lot of massacres against protesters during and right after the revolution, like the 28th of January massacre. 800 people died that day. The camel incident on February 2nd, government hired thugs, rode into areas of them sitting on camels and horseback and started attacking protesters. The Maspero and Mohammed Mahmoud incidents. Islamists sold out the protesters and revolutionaries to the army, and protesters were getting shot in the streets by the military police. 3. The murder of Shima el-Sabag on January 24, 2015, when she tried to commemorate the anniversary of the revolution in Tahrir Square, when a plainclothed policeman shot her dead and she died in the arms of her husband. There are photos of this online. See it at your own risk.